Wanted to show this video highlighting Bernie Sanders and his address with what's happening right now with the coronavirus. And I want you to really compare this with Trump, who was saying just a month ago that the coronavirus was a Democratic hoax. He was downplaying it, and now we're in this mess where we don't have enough masks and gowns for our medical workers and where we don't have enough ventilators and tests. Let's go ahead and watch Bernie.
Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the stimulus package that will likely be on the floor of the Senate tonight or perhaps tomorrow, and take a few minutes to talk about what we might be learning from this crisis that we're in right now. And let me begin by stating that this bill, the stimulus package, is obviously not the bill that I think anyone in the progressive community would have written. There is much in it that I dislike very much, and equally important, there is much that is not in it that should be in it. Further, as we speak right now, there are efforts by right-wing Republicans, Senator Graham and others, who are trying to undermine the compromise that was reached by significantly lowering the amount of money that many workers would be receiving as well as a result of this bill. And needless to say, that is something I will not allow to happen. Having said all of that, as a U.S. Senator, let me also state the very obvious, and that is that elections matter. Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and Republicans do hold a majority in the U.S. Senate. And under that reality, I cannot imagine that there is any bill that could get through the Senate and the White House that fully represents the needs of the working families of our country and that is not laden with large amounts of corporate welfare. That is the sad reality of where we are today. Further, what must be also acknowledged is that our country today faces the worst pandemic since the Spanish flu of 1918, which took 675,000 lives and infected 1/3 of the population. And simultaneously, in addition to the major healthcare crisis we face, we are looking at perhaps the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Where will we be in a few months? The truth is that nobody knows. But there are some estimates that unemployment by the end of June could be as high as 30%. And in my view, what we must do, and I think what common sense suggests, is prepare for the worst. Today, there are tens of millions of Americans who are hurting and who are frightened. With half of our people living paycheck to paycheck, these workers and their families worry about what will happen to them when those paychecks stop coming in. And we're seeing this every single day. These are people and families who are barely surviving now. They're making $10 an hour, they're making $12 an hour, and they are wondering what happens when the paychecks cease. Will there be enough money to put food on the table for their kids, to pay for the rent, or to keep the lights on? In this frightening and dangerous and unprecedented moment in modern American history, as we do everything possible to grapple with this crisis and to address it as best we can, it is also appropriate to ask ourselves how we got here and what this says about the financial and economic structure of our country. In other words, I suspect that right now, all across this country, people are asking themselves, how does it happen that in the richest country in the history of the world, when we are spending twice as much per capita on healthcare as the people of any other nation, how is it possible that doctors and nurses today do not have the kind of masks they need to protect themselves. How does it happen? They don't have the gloves. They don't have the gowns. How does it happen that we don't have the necessary ventilators that we need in the midst of this crisis, or the ICU units, or even the emergency beds that are so very important? And I think furthermore, as we think about the moment that we are in, people are understanding that there is something wrong, that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all as a human right. And when we think about the moment that we're in, we're thinking about how does it happen that so many people are living in economic desperation and are so frightened about what the next few weeks will bring to them. How does it happen that so many of our people are working for jobs that have not allowed them to put money in the bank? Look, this crisis, this epidemic is going to impact everybody. In Fairfield, Connecticut, one of the richest counties in this country, there is an epidemic. Rich people are hurting. The heir to the British throne, Prince Charles, has been diagnosed with the coronavirus. And that is a very, very wealthy family. But in the midst of all of that, if you got money at least, all you got to worry about is healthcare. You don't have to worry about how you're going to survive financially. But for many, many millions of our families, that is not the case. And we have got to think and think hard about how we create an economy that works for all, so that we don't have 40% of our population unable to afford a $400 emergency. Now, let me say a few words about the package that will be likely coming up on the floor of the Senate tonight or tomorrow. Number one, I have insisted, as have many progressives, that this is a time in which we have got to spend what it takes. So let me begin by saying that I believe this package, which is called the Coronavirus 3 package.
Okay, he brings up the fact that there were efforts to reduce the money in the bill that would be going towards working families. He brings up the fact that corporate welfare is just a reality of our political system. It's refreshing to hear a politician say this, especially when you have so many that won't acknowledge it, mainly because they're receiving so much money from corporate sponsors. It goes on to talk about unemployment being 30%. Imagine how bad this would be. It's almost 1 in every 3 people just not having a job. It's not only going to be bad for those people, but for the economy in general. Consumption is going to go way down. People won't be eating out. People won't be really buying other products. They won't be going on trips. It's going to hurt a lot of industries if we see unemployment rates that high, which is why it's important to have money just flowing through the economy, whether it's through some type of UBI or some other type of aid. He brought up the fact that we don't have enough masks and gowns. So again, comparing that with Trump's leadership and the fact that with Trump, we just don't have what we need. Trump cut funding to the CDC. The funny thing I see is on Facebook, there's a lot of people who actually like Trump, but they are even further maybe to the right than he is, and they say that we shouldn't be taking any of the measures we are. At least Trump's been saying that people, as of right now, should stay home, even though he's saying that might change in the future. There's people on Facebook that indicate this is all just one big conspiracy. What a joke. The idea that all these doctors and all of these educated people are just trying to pull one over on them. I guess that's an easier thought to accept than maybe the idea of, like, there's a lot of people in society that understand something that you don't. A lot of people don't want to wrestle with that idea, the fact that there's a large segment of society that's just plain out, like, better educated, and they understand what's going on better than you do. And then he brought up the fact that during this time period, a lot of people don't have health care. Kyle Kulinski showed a clip where this lady, she paid over $30,000 for her treatment with the coronavirus. It's just ridiculous. But Bernie Sanders It's not looking great for him right now with the election, but definitely one of a kind politician. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. We'll have more videos coming out on history and politics. Thanks.